Good evening. Tonight's City Speak, for tonight's City Speak, we welcome candidates for the Corvallis Public School Board, Stephen Castellano and Chris Hawkins. Both are seeking Tina Baker's seat, Baker having decided not to seek re-election. Our guest moderator this evening is Helen Higgins, Boys and Girls Club of Corvallis CEO, and a former school board member and vice president and former vice president City Club of Corvallis. I am Steve Schultz, representing both the organizations that present these forums, City Club of Corvallis and the Corvallis Advocate. City Club of Corvallis is a volunteer-run nonprofit organization that seeks to present a diversity of viewpoints and constructive dialogue. The Advocate offers a fresh feed of daily news online that is highly Corvallis-centric. These town hall meetings and extensive events calendars. Later this week, on Wednesday, City Speak will offer a town hall on ballot measure 2140, $110 million tax proposal to build a new jail and sheriff's office. Also, partial funding for these forums come from Peak Sports and First Alternative Foods Co-op. We appreciate that support. However, we could not present City Speak without support from viewers like you. One way you can support these town halls is a subscription to the Corvallis Advocate. There's levels at $10 and $15 monthly, and you can hit our site, and it's easy to do. It'll take you a whole 60 seconds. And now on to this evening's program. Helen, thank you for agreeing to moderate this evening.
All right.
Helen.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Steve. Of the 4 races for school board this year, position 2 is the only contested race, with Chris Hawkins and Stephen Castellano vying for the seat. All school board positions are at large, and the terms are 4 years. So, Chris, I'd like to have you get started for us tonight. And the first question, you'll have 1 minute, is could you share with the viewers your why for running for the Corvallis School Board?
Yes, I sure will. Thank you, Helen. Well, I was an educator for the past 37 years. I taught elementary school and I worked with kids in crisis. And I spent a lot of time with really difficult situations, and I advocated and worked hard to advocate for students. And after retiring this summer, I just feel like I'm not done. I have a lot of passion left and time and energy to support our kids and to support our families. And so school board seemed like the best next thing for me to do.
All right. Thank you, Chris. All right, Stephen, same question. Tell us about your why for running for Corvallis School Board.
Okay. Well, I have history in this community, especially as a child. And I am just so grateful for this community, how supportive it is and how great it is. And I want to give back with my expertise in public policy. I also have done some research and realized that Corvallis, thankfully, is higher than the state average, but the state average for test scores and graduation rates is not very high. In fact, California and Washington are higher, and that's not saying much. And I think we're an excellent community to lead the way in raising educational standards for Oregon.
Okay, thank you both. All right, so let's move into a few issue topics. Again, you will each have up to 3 minutes to respond. So Chris, this first question we'll have you get started on. This has been a fraught time for both students and teachers. According to local reporting of a specific situation at Linus Pauling, there has been violence in the schools that has been impacting both teachers and students. The local teachers union president, Krista Schmieder, testified at the February 9th school board meeting that many teachers are tired, are having problems coping, and are starting to look for alternative careers or just leaving the profession. So Chris, can you share with us what policies that you would consider advancing to address these issues and support a safe environment for both schools, staff, and students?
Yeah, I sure will. And I'm always sad to hear when teachers feel that way. I think as a school board member, first of all, I want to be active and visible in the schools. I think that's really important for us to be there. Since I have so many years of experience in our district, I've already built strong connections. And so I think it would be very natural. I've already had administrators say, oh, I can't wait. I hope you come spend time in our schools. So that'll be a natural process and easy for me to be there. I think that we need to work on continuing to have strong systems in place to support teachers when students are experiencing aggressive behaviors. We have some schools that are having great success with the systems in place where they have a process and they have staff who are trained with collaborative problem solving practices and are trauma informed. And we would need to continue to build those systems and those processes for every school. I think that we need to continue supporting our mental health services in our district and our skills training services. I think that we need to also support trauma-informed practices and strategies, and again, the collaborative problem-solving training in our for all staff. I think increasing parent education on home strategies. And then at a recent school board meeting I was at, some teachers asked for another avenue where they can have a connection to a school board member so that they can talk about their concerns. And I think that this would be, I would be the great person because I already have the relationship with them to do more walk and talks.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, same question. What policies would you consider advancing to address these issues and support a safe environment for both school staff and students?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say the answers that Chris Hawkins gave are all very good, but I would add that we need to prioritize education in terms of the local budget and tax revenue going to education. And there needs to be more funding and there needs to be more support staff and more. We already have an internship program, I've learned, but we need to utilize that more and have more interns in the schools. And definitely we need more funding for the mental health.
All right, any additional comments? Okay. All right, this next question, Stephen, you'll start on this next question. According to enrollment information provided by district administration, enrollment is projected to decline over the next decade, including a further reduction of approximately 300 students next school year. So, Stephen, what challenges do you see these declines bringing to the district? And what ideas do you have as a prospective school board member to prepare for these changes?
Okay, there's, sorry, I didn't catch what that is a decline of.
Of enrollment, and also your camera is off, I believe. Okay, so a decline of enrollment. Oh, it went off again. That's okay. We'll just move on. Still with me? All right, what I'm gonna do, because Stephen, I'm not sure if we're having technical issues. Chris, I'm in a reverse order. So Chris, wait a minute. Oh, what do you think, Stephen? Are you ready to go or shall I move over to Chris?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Okay.
Decline of enrollment. We need one-on-one attention for our students, so students want to stay in school and for people to enroll their kids in school and to increase the academic standards.
Do you have any thoughts, Stephen, on the impact or why we're seeing a decline in students in the Corvallis School District?
I hear that parents want to put their kids in private school because the standards are so low from the community.
Okay. Any additional comments?
No.
Okay. All right. So Chris, same question. Would you like me to repeat the question for you? Okay. So again, declining enrollment. What challenges do you see that these declines are bringing for the district? And what ideas do you have as a prospective school board member to prepare for these changes?
Yes, I think that the challenges is always going to be staff reduction and reduction in programs, and of course that's not something we want to hear or see. I think that we need to survey teachers and parents and students to hear what their priorities are when we are looking at budget cuts. I think that we're just going to all have to roll up our sleeves and work hard to make sure that we're offering the same services. When it comes to why our enrollment is down, I believe when you look at population numbers, you're going to look at that alone, a decrease in children at the school age. And if we have had a decline in student attendance because students going to private schools, then I'm going to start asking questions to parents and ask them why.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question, and Chris, you'll start with this one. Can you share with us your philosophy on the role of a school board member versus the role of the superintendent?
Yeah, I think the school board member, well, to be honest, when you Google school board members, the role is to build policy for the district, to look at budgeting, to review budgeting, and to do the hiring and looking at our superintendent, and to advocate for bond measures. I think number one school board member is to advocate for students and to listen to parents in our community. So that will be my first thing, and to make sure that's always my priority. I think that also, along with building policy in schools, that it's really important that we're looking at school safety. And fortunately, I've had a lot of experience around, my job was around school safety, and so I'll be making sure that school board looks at that as a priority as well. And I think that's all different than the superintendent, who is like the CEO, right, of the district and in charge of staff and maintaining curriculum and all of that. So.
Thank you. Stephen, same question. What is your philosophy on the role of a school board member versus the role of the superintendent?
School board would be there to drive policy for the educational policy for the school district, and advocate for the students and the parents and the teachers to get the funding they need. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next question. This time, Stephen, we're going to start with you. So what do you see as the biggest challenge and also the best opportunity for the Corvallis School District over the next 4 years? And what role do you see yourself playing in both addressing the challenges and making the opportunities possible?
I see the greatest challenge is how education is valued in society. And the greatest opportunity is that many, or not all, people in Corvallis are much more progressive than the rest of the country. And I would be championing more funding for schools and valuing education as the pinnacle of the essential public goods. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Chris, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so again, what do you see as the biggest challenge and then the best opportunity for the school district over the next 4 years? And what role do you see yourself playing on both the challenges and the opportunities?
Well, I think the challenge is budget cuts. I think that, with the declining numbers of students, we may have to make some major cuts. And with that is also going to be difficult, and it's going to be a hardship for teachers and staff, where the needs of students has increased with behavioral needs, with students with different kinds of challenges. And so I think the challenge is going to be to maintain the level of services that we've already been providing, with keeping morale of teachers up and staff. And I think that school board that's going to be our challenge, is to continue to support staff with those kind of challenges. Looking at my notes, my role, is going to be to just really be creative in finding ways to support staff and our district, and to maintain those programs that we already have in place.
And would you like to comment at all about any potential opportunities that you see?
I think being in school more, being in the schools, be visible. I think those are going to be the opportunities. I think addressing state level for more funding, and looking at different ways to bring in more funding into our district is going to also be something that we'll have to look at.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move into a couple of questions. So you'll each get 2 questions in a row, and we're going to speak to your voter pamphlet candidate statements. So Chris, we'll start with you. In your candidate statement, you say you will prioritize all students, including those with unique physical, emotional, and social needs, so they experience positive learning environments that respect their individuality, their learning level, and the pathway to succeed. So could you share with viewers what that looks like to you, and any specific actions or investments that you would champion as a school board member?
Yeah, I think our district already is doing an outstanding job with being inclusive and making sure that kids are included and are part of programs and in the regular classroom setting. And I think that we need to continue with that, building programs. I think like a good example of that is our CTE programs, expanding our career and technical programs, which a lot of times are successful programs for students who have different challenges. If you look at research, homeless kids have been very successful in CTE programs and have had a great pathway to success in that. And so I think that that would be one area I would really like to see us expand on. I'd like to see us look at, even though funding is a challenge right now, but looking at different ways to fund that, bringing in our partner agencies and our community members to support CTE programs. And I think just looking at different pathways for students to be successful, keeping things individualized if at all possible, looking at smaller programs that will support some of these students.
Okay, thank you. And this sort of leads into where you were going, but I'll ask it again in your candidate statement. You mentioned that you would like the district to continue to expand its technical and career training or its vocational programs. So could you please say more about what you would do to help make this happen?
Yeah, I just think that, as I mentioned before, it's a great pathway for a lot of kids. Even, we have students who are gifted intellectually that CTE programs would be a benefit for them as well. And so it's bringing in the community, bringing in different professional people to expand on that. And it's just really looking at the needs of each student and to figure out their specific pathway. And it may not be the regular, typical 4-year pathway that a lot of kids attend. It may be something very different and unique for them.
Right. And you had mentioned about funding. So again, as a school board member, what role could you see yourself playing to secure some of those funds
I think
these programs?
I think there needs to be more advocacy at the state level for that, and looking at grants and advocating for that, and also being a part of writing for grants for that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Stephen, in your candidate statement, you say our public schools need to stress academic excellence and someday move to an 8-hour school day where homework is completed during school with the guidance of tutors by having partnerships with local colleges. So could you share with our viewers what that looks like to you and any specific actions or investments that you would champion as a school board member?
Yes. Basically, it would be the end of the day until 5 o'clock. There would be study halls where students finish all their homework and they finish it under the guidance of tutors with interns from the local colleges. And we need tutoring in schools to increase our test scores and increase our graduation rates. And they need to be able to get their work done, not blindly or just on their own at home, or even with the help of their parents, but with people that are actually experts in each and every subject, as a public good, as a public service of the community, with the school doors being open, and definitely advocating on all levels in every way, shape, and form to increase funding in the schools and get the support staff and everything else and the mental health spending that's needed.
Okay, thank you. All right. You also wrote that Oregon schools rank 48th in the nation, and Corvallis schools should lead the way in improving that number. So could you outline your ideas on how you see the district taking action to improve that ranking?
Yes, well, we have a dynamic internship program. We need to be having interns that are tutors and get one-on-one attention for the students to make sure they know how to read and do math, and go beyond that as the grade levels get higher, to increase our test scores and bring up the average of the state.
Okay. Thank you both. All right, what we're going to do at this point is that we are going to move into some audience questions. So viewers out there, if you have a question for the candidates, please enter them into the chat and we will get those filtered over. And we've got a couple to start with. And so I think what I'll do is we'll just go back and forth on who answers first, but we'll try to keep it in that, under a minute. We're doing fine on time. So let's start with the first one here. So first question we have is, candidates, is gun violence in schools an issue or a concern for you? If yes, what do you consider to be a possible solution? So Stephen, we'll start with you, and then Chris will go to you.
Okay. Well, I consider it obviously from seeing the news, it's a huge issue, and it has a very life and death consequence to it if you get it wrong. And I think there's two really big answers, maybe even three. as well as others, I'm sure. One is schools need to be a weapons-free zone. There should be no concealed carry on school campuses, I don't think. I don't think people should be allowed to have, or especially students who are 18 should not be able to have guns at school. And I don't support teachers having a gun and being responsible to defend everyone with a gun either. I've heard that solution. And just some tougher gun control laws at the state and federal level as well. And perhaps advocating for that as a school board member would be a righteous thing to do. Beyond that, I mean, there could be martial arts training to help, staff be able, or staff and security be able to deal with an armed assailant. And yeah, those are 3 solutions I can think of on the top of my head.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. All right, Chris. Again, gun violence in school, is that an issue or concern for you? If yes, what do you consider to be possible solutions?
Unfortunately, it's a reality in our nation. And unfortunately, it's not the guns and the people that are coming in are not students that are in the school. It's coming from the outside. So I think, first of all, what our district is already doing is creating safe entryways into our buildings so that everybody that comes into the building has to be checked in at the front door and all the perimeter doors are locked. And if the school doesn't have that yet, they're building it. That's been part of the bond. So that's very important. Second, I think that we need to continue to support policy and procedure around the threat assessment process. Senate Bill 414 right now. But fortunately, Corvallis School District already has a very strong team of people who have been trained that follow the national protocols with threat assessment and are following those policies and those processes. And we have that, and we will want to continue that. We have a really good working relationship with our law enforcement that also reinforces our threat assessment process. I would also encourage a student campaign about reporting when they hear something, say something. We've done a great job with that around when students hear about suicidal comments to report that, staff as well. We need to do that with students hearing comments or threats that are homicidal as well. So yeah, it is a challenge. It is a threat, and we need to be in front of it at all times.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. Could the school start having PE at least 3 days a week, if not 5? Chris, would you like to start with that question?
Yeah, I would love to see PE every day of the week if possible. And unfortunately, it's always been a restraint around budgeting, scheduling, all of that. And so, yeah, that PE and all our art should be 5 days a week, but I'm not sure that scheduling or funding is going to make that possible, especially right now.
Okay. Stephen, your response?
Yeah, I support PE being taught 5 days a week. And I support championing getting the funding to make that a reality. So it was actually well put by Chris Hawkins.
Thank you. All right, next question was kind of an add-on to some of the safety. There's a comment about the lack of video surveillance in school buildings and on school properties. What are your thoughts about video surveillance in our schools from a safety perspective, and what action or steps could you take to address that? And I think, where are we at? Chris or Stephen? Stephen, I think you're up on this first question.
Okay. Well, I believe we should just be investing in our security, period. But we can include surveillance or more surveillance in that effort. And again, you would have to champion the funding to be able to get that done. Thank you.
Chris, your comments.
Yeah, I believe security and surveillance was part of the bond measure, and I think that we have that in place in our brand new schools and the schools that have just recently been restructured. And so I would say, yeah, we need that in all of the schools. And I do think that was part of our bond measure. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the top of the list.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question. What will you do to make the school operations more sustainable? And Chris, you'll start on this question.
Can you give me a little bit more information on that?
Well, the viewer did not say what they mean by sustainable. So why don't you take an environmental approach and a financial approach, and how about even just a people approach as far as populations? Let's do all three legs of the sustainable stool.
Operational sustainability.
And I'll give you 1 minute.
Well, looking environmentally, we did hire I can't remember exactly his title, but to work on sustainability in our district. They've been doing that with the new building. They've been doing that with resources. And so I think that we're on the right track with that. Looking at energy, all of that. I think with operational, I guess I'm just not real sure exactly what the person is asking on that. With funding, we're just going to have to continue to advocate for funding, showing the State Department what we need and what we're doing and what our successes have been.
All right.
All of that's a challenge, and I'm sorry, I'm still not real clear on what the question was.
That's okay. Stephen, your turn. What are your thoughts on sustainable school operations?
Well, you definitely need the champion for the funding that you need to fund the programs that need to be in there. And we need to tap into the local colleges and have more interns as support staff that ideally would be paid, but at least they can get school credit for their time. And I believe we are on the right track for being environmentally sustainable. I just think we are a very good community, a very progressive community when it comes to the environment and many other issues. So I think we just need to continue with the programs we have in place and that are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Chris, your response.
I thought I answered that already.
Well, you did. Well, you get this next one then. You want to answer it again?
Probably could do a better job.
We'll go on the other side. All right, so let's talk about this next one. It says, what will you do about bullying? So this particular viewer says that they have taken their student out of school because of bullying or lack of a bullying response. So what are your thoughts as a school board member to address this important issue?
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that a parent has taken their child out of our district. As a school board member, we're about policy, right? And I know that there is policy about counseling students, to giving them skill sets on helping with interactions around students who they feel are treating them that way. I think that as a school board member, we can work around continuing to make sure that we have a social emotional curriculum that supports that skill building as well. Working with counselors and just the funding around mental wellness.
Thank you.
Can I say one more thing? I also think that, that as a school board member is to encourage administration to really have those conversations with parents about their experiences.
Right, thank you. All right, Stephen, same question. What do you see about addressing bullying?
First, I would say there needs to be education around bullying. What is bullying? That is not good, and how to report bullying and how to address bullying. And they need to hold students that do bully other students accountable, but also it is largely a mental health issue, and not only the victims of bullying will need counseling, but the students that are bullying obviously need counseling as well. So we need we need the mental health services in place to deal with this mental health problem.
Okay, thank you. All right, Stephen, you're up on this question. Do you plan on staying on the school board, or do you plan to seek other offices later?
If elected, I would plan to serve out my entire 4-year term. And I may seek another office after that term, but not for 4 years.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I am not seeking other offices. I am retired, and my dedication is to this district for 4 years and maybe even more after that. So,
all right, thank you. All right, next question. And Chris, we'll start with you. What do you see as the best ways to support graduation rates?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure, yes. What do you see as the best ways to support graduation rates?
Well, I think our district has really strong graduation rates. I think that the areas we need to continue to work on are supporting students who are navigating poverty and homelessness. I think the CTE, as I mentioned before, is a great pathway for that. I'm being more inclusive, looking at our English language learners as well, supporting them and giving them additional supports and programs.
Thank you. And thank you, because I did not scroll down far enough. So the full question is, what are the best ways to support graduation rates for historically marginalized students, knowing we see disparities related to race, socioeconomic status, et cetera? So if you want to build on your response on the full question, I'll give you another 30 seconds.
No, I think I answered it. I would say I would also just look at federal funding, underfunding in those areas, and making sure that we can, battle that up at the State Department.
Right. All right. Thank you. All right, Stephen, same question. What are some of the best ways you see to support graduation rates for historically marginalized students, knowing that we see disparities related to race, socioeconomic status, et cetera?
Yes. I think we need to bolster their confidence, and they need the support from the school through tutoring and support services to be able to make the grade and have the confidence to get all the way to graduation without being restricted by their parents' income or their job or whatever barriers they have. They need to be able to have the school be able to support them and increase their confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question, and Stephen, we'll start with you. Do you believe student voice is important for district decision-making? And if so, how would you center student voice, particularly the voices of historically marginalized students?
We should definitely be listening to the voices of the students as well as the parents, and the faculty. We should be inviting students as well as those other groups into the school board meetings to tell us what do they need, and be able to have open communication with the students and as well as the teachers and the teachers unions of what is needed to support our students. Thank you.
Chris, again, do you believe student voice is important for district decision making? If so, how would you center student voice, particularly with historically marginalized students?
I think student voice is critical about what we're doing in our district. And I think should be at the forefront of decision making. When I worked with homeless students, I would go sit down at different schools and have lunch with students and just listen to them. And they educated me on so many things about what was important to them, from learning about, they wanted to learn about how to maintain a checkbook, and they wanted to learn how to cook, and they wanted to learn how to figure out their finances and change a flat tire. And so I think it's really important. We do currently have students on our school board, and they're amazing to listen to. They're great about giving us their input and sharing with us what their experiences. And then I would also continue to do more student surveys to get their advice, their opinions, their experience, all of that.
Great, thank you. Okay, this next question is definitely in the school board's wheelhouse, and it is about high school schedules. So the question is basically that the high school schedule is very confusing for parents and students. And the question is, how can parents and students provide more feedback into those schedules to drive change that works for students and families? And Chris, I believe we're starting with you.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of frustration around the schedules, and I believe next year they're changing. And I think that a lot of the changes have been made because of student voice, as well as our parents voicing their concerns, and staff as well. So I think there is already a change happening. And I would just continue to advocate for parents to speak up. And I think, now with our modern virtual technology, I think we can start using that a little bit more with parent input. When we invite parents to evening meetings, we don't always get a lot of attendance because parents are busy, right? And they got kids at home and they're trying to feed them, make sure they're doing their homework. So I think we need to be a little bit more creative about getting their input. So I would work along that, but like I said, I think the schedule is changing due to the feedback that we got.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, anything you'd like to add on to the scheduling question, high school schedule?
Yes, I remember going to high school at Placer High in California, and we had a block schedule. So we had a certain schedule on Mondays, and then we had a certain schedule Tuesday, Thursday, and Wednesday, Friday. However, the next year they decided to throw a wrench into the works and have certain days where they add a class. So every single day was a completely different schedule. And it was just ridiculous. And there needs to be common sense policy to prevent it so students can remember their schedules. And I remember I literally couldn't, I'd be in the wrong class. And to not know from day to day, have any consistency in your schedule, there should be a common sense policy against that. At least that was my experience, and that I can definitely relate to. So, and we should be listening to the student's voice and the parent's voice. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, this question is, as an elected official, school board members are elected officials and leaders in this community. How would you work with other elected officials, city council, county commissioners, to advance priorities and initiatives of the community that are sort of holistically in support of youth and families? And let's see, I think Stephen, you're up first.
Yes. Well, this is just would be a matter of networking with the other elected officials and champion joint causes. And we should be reaching out to the other officials and getting to know them and working with them together because we're all here to serve a common community.
Is there any particular issue, Stephen, that you would see would be prime for working with other elected officials?
Well, yes, the current bond measure that's up on the ballot on May 16th. I mean, it covers a few different areas, so you should reach out to the other ones to advocate for different bond measures, for instance, because it hits more than one of the governmental areas.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah, the last 13 years of my career working with the different challenges, I built a lot of relationships with partnering agencies, Boys and Girls Club, our DHS program, our juvenile department, law enforcement. I think that is critical to build those relationships, to learn about priorities of each of the different agencies or the offices that you were talking about, and figuring out what our priorities are. We worked pretty closely with a number of agencies around supporting homeless students. And I think that that would be another area, because that is a big area in our community, is to support homeless families. And so I see us working very closely together with our city and county counterparts with that.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question actually is on housing. So as you're aware, we have less than a 1% vacancy rate and nearly not enough housing for our communities and families. What role would you see yourself playing as an elected official to drive that conversation and the priorities to address this problem? And Chris, you're up first.
I think being a voice first for our students. When I used to present to different community groups about our homeless population of students, people were shocked to hear what the number of students in our community that were homeless. So I think raising awareness is number one, and being an advocate for those students and working closely with our other agencies that support housing, trying to find funding, trying to get grants. But I think raising awareness and advocating would be a priority as a school board member.
Thank you. Stephen, your response.
Yes, I'll just speak to myself as a candidate. I'm a very different type of candidate than Chris Hawkins is. I have many qualifications that she doesn't have, and I have she has many that I don't have. I am actually a political advocate first, and running for school board as someone who's very passionate about children and education. And I would advocate for the entire homelessness issue, but particularly as a school board member about students and the need for more housing and more funding for housing in this community to end homelessness as soon as we possibly can, or at least reduce it to reasonable levels. As someone who sees the government as a force for good and government spending as stimulating to the economy as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, I am not seeing any additional questions in the chat. So I'm going to wait just 20 seconds in case anything comes in. And in the meantime, if nothing else comes in, I'll be asking you both for your final comments. Just wait, 3, 2, not seeing anything. Okay, so let's do this. So as we wrap up, what I'd like to do first of all is to give each of the candidates an opportunity to tell the viewers why they should cast a vote for you on the May 16th special election. So Stephen, I believe, will take the closing question on tell us why you would make the best candidate for the school board position.
Yes, I'll boil it down to two main reasons. One is I have life experience and a perspective that many others do not have in this community, from living in multiple states and multiple cities within Oregon and also California and in Washington even. And I have seen tutoring increase, will boost students' grades greatly, because my mother is a teacher in college and had been a tutor and is a tutor. And I've seen the positive effects of tutoring, and getting tutors in the school, I think, would be a silver bullet to increase our test scores and reduce our graduation rates. Thank you.
Okay. Chris, tell us why you would be the best candidate for school board position. I think it's 2 for the school board position.
Yeah, I think, I have 3 children that went through the Corvallis schools. I have currently 4 grandchildren that are in the Corvallis schools, and I've worked here for 23 years. I have dedicated a good part of my life to education and to advocating for students with challenges. And kids are my priority. Corvallis is my priority. I've lived here a long time, and I've worked hard for this community, and I'm going to continue it. And the school board is a great avenue for me to be able to follow my passion and my love for this community and to advocate for kids.
Okay, thank you both. So I really appreciate you both putting yourselves forward to run for school board. These are really important positions, and I'm appreciative that you're both willing to give of your volunteer time in such an impactful way. So at this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Steve Schultz, who will wrap up this evening's forum for us.
Thank you, Helen. And great job moderating this evening. Thank you so much for stepping in to help. Also to the 2 candidates, these are volunteer positions. They're not easy to run for. They're even harder to do if you do get the office. Thank you for putting your hand up and saying you're willing to do this and to run for this office. To the audience, of course, thank you for being engaged enough to ask the questions you've asked, or just simply hang through the conversation and have this level of interest in the folks running for office in our community that we all share together. Also, want a quick shout out to the folks behind the scenes at The Advocate. You folks that are doing most of the work, actually, stuff the public sees for this hour, that's kind of the easier part. It's all the folks that are doing the stuff behind the scenes. Big shout out to those folks over at the Corvallis Advocate. And then thank you again to our sponsors, First Alternative Natural Foods Co-op and Peak Sports. And a quick reminder to audience that we have that discussion on Wednesday of the community safety measure 2140 for $110 million for a new jail and sheriff's office.